Show, where conversation is art, 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 art. Conversation is art, conversation is art. You should chime in, ain't no telling what to spark on the Val Show. Ain't no telling the Val Show. You know, ain't no telling where we go on the Val Show. Ain't no ceiling, cause the art of conversation is the flow. It's that creativity available when we speak, available in our homes, available in the streets. We just trying to get it sparking and take it a little deeper. Keep it casual while fireside chatting with our people. Yeah, we take it a little deeper. It get hot when we fireside chatting with our people. Cause conversation is art, conversation is art. You should chime in, ain't no telling what'll spark on the Val and Val Show. The Val and Val Show.
Hello. What's happening?
You caught me trying to get a yawn in, everybody. What's going on, folks? Val, what's happening, girl?
Hey, it's okay. It's okay. Today, one the day I wanted to be a part of, my dear sweet sister-in-law died, and we had her celebration of life. Yeah. It was a nice service, but still, that's a break in the family chain.
Right.
I'm here to have this conversation as art because I was like, I need to be among the people. Got to be among the people.
Right. Well, Lashri and I are sending condolences and prayers. And if we can do anything for you all, just let us know.
Well, thank you. Well, the kicker was my aunt's 88th birthday party this weekend down in South Alabama. So I was going to that anyway. And my brother was coming from Detroit for that. Mm-hmm. But when he found out Terrell's sister had died, he rearranged and decided, he said, I need to fly into Birmingham and I'll just drive down with you. So I call him my brother dad. He's that kind of person. Yeah. I mean, he will rearrange anything to be with people when things are going through, whether it be it good or bad. He's going to show up. So even Terrell's nephew, who just met him a few times, when he saw him, he just lit up just to think that he thought enough of them. Hey, I've been in this family, 30-some years now. So
so this family.
On both sides, for sure.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, give Terrell our love, please.
I will. Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? We've missed y'all. A whole week has gone by, and we are back up in here on the Val and Val Show. Conversation is art. None other can do it like we can do it. Valerie Jones McMillan. I think I did it right. Valerie McMillan.
No. Okay, now you got it right.
VMJ. Y'all, I am extremely tired tonight, but we're going to kick it anyway. We got a super duper show for you, talking about them sports things, and how it affects your head space. And, it affects basketball, baseball, soccer, hockey, boxing, even.
Yes.
All the sports that will be covered tonight will be discussed with us here on the Val and Val Show with the resident doctor extraordinaire, Dr. Demel Coleman.
Come on.
What's up, Fi?
Hey, look, our top guest. He's the top guest.
Yeah.
But you know what, Dr. Coleman, seriously, since we've been having you on, I mean, it's obvious that mental health is very important and something that people are struggling with because you have some of the highest numbers, when we have these conversations. Right. And I want to thank you because I think you've really helped Valton and I show folks it's okay to talk about this and it's okay not to be okay with it. So I had the opportunity to, I had to watch virtually after my sister-in-law died and couldn't attend. My daughter's best friend, her first friend at 3 years old, she graduated from the other school, Auburn, but I told her I'd do War Eagle one time with her doctorate in psychology. And she's actually focusing on adolescents and children. And she actually wrote a book called My Feelings Are Okay, actually for elementary age kids to let them know it's okay. Great. So it's definitely an issue. It's definitely an issue. And not just mentally with these sports that we got going on, it's physically. I had looked up some stuff. I was like, I know if you ever had a child play sport, they've been hurt one way or the other physically. So what you been up to, Dr. Coleman?
I've been doing pretty good. Just trying to get ready for this school year. My last one is a senior, so
Yeah.
We're enjoying our last year with her in the house. So
Now you smiling too big.
Right,
Now.
right. You ain't fooling nobody.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. The old folks say your teeth wrap around your head. You supposed to be saying my last one.
my last one.
Right. In his mind, he's saying, "Yippee, yippee." Yeah, I get it.
Well, and to kick off what we're talking about right now, this actually show is actually something that we're dealing with her right now about. Because she's going to play volleyball, and I think I had posted about her playing through her sprained knee, and how I kept trying to tell her, hey, look, you need to take it easy. And these athletes, become over identified with this sport. Now it's has its pluses. You get the self-confidence, you get the team part, it teaches them some leadership skills. She's grown a lot as an athlete. But the downside is they over identify and make that their identity. There's a big thing going on in softball now, and a lot of girls that play with my daughter in travel softball, they have a shirt now. It's called I Play. And the reason they say that is because they want people to understand that they're a person first, not an athlete. And so, and there's been several episodes of athletes who've had injuries and difficulties, and they've taken their lives because they were so over identified with them being an athlete, that they didn't see themselves outside of that. And so, and that's a concern because not only is there a big push in this country, because in America we do it big. Youth sports is like a $15 billion industry, 15 billion with a big B. And it is driving this whole issue of more and more people are playing sports. They're not just playing 1 or 2 or 3 sports, they're playing one sport. And so you have this what is called overuse syndrome, where basically they are using the same muscles over and over again all year, and so they're getting increased levels of injuries. There's the surgeon is surgery is called Tommy John syndrome. Back in the day, the average age was 27. Now it's all the way down to 17.
Wow.
They're talking about girls who play soccer. You're talking about 11-year-olds who having ACL surgeries. And so, and these girls and these athletes are dropping off because, what happens, it is so competitive that I think in a couple of studies, it says about 70% of them, by the time they're 13, they quit. They're burnt out and they're exhausted. And it's a lot on these kids. You're talking about little kids having to take on all this concept of being very professional. I've seen it in my house. Our older daughter, she was at practice and she basically tore the bone from the ligament on one of her thumbs when she made a plant. And so she had to sit out. And in the time she sat out, you see it on her face. She just looked depressed, as if, her world had come to an end because she couldn't play softball.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, what in the world are we doing here? And it's a difficult place for parents because I love sports too, and you pushing them and you trying to encourage them. And, it's that fine line of trying to figure out that balance between, okay, where is healthy and where is unhealthy.
Speaking of sports in relation to mental health, let's look at it from a standpoint of actors and actresses, directors and playwriters, screenwriters. There's a lot of pressure to get content out right now. A lot, please believe me. And you get a phone call and people are asking you, when you gonna start filming again? When you gonna do this? I'm like, yeah, I ain't even finished the last thing yet, And then you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about, oh my goodness, I gotta write the script. Then you're up doing it at 4 and 5, and then something else comes up. It's a bear just trying to live right now. It really is. Trying to juggle everything you got going on and live and balance your own personal life. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Remember that bottle of bourbon over there, baby?
but that's the key.
Don't y'all get no bourbon. See we gonna look. Dr. Coleman gonna get with him after this show. But Dr. Coleman, I wanted to mention something. Both my kids play sports. My daughter played primary sport was tennis, and my son's primary sports was basketball. But we only allowed them to do 2 things. We exposed them to it all. But we said, okay, once you decide what your major is, Then also you can have a minor. You know what I'm saying? Because we are
Right.
not finna be zipping around town. And I thank God with me being a nurse and working in the ER, I got to see firsthand a lot of the effects of this stuff, physical and both mentally as well. I got to see a lot of adults who was going so hard having knee replacements in their 30s. That's young to start having hips and things replaced. Or their shoulders are just shot. They can't even raise them up.
Yep.
But I never forget my son it was playing AAU, and they had a tournament at Mount Brook, but he also ran track. No, it was Hoover. He was playing Hoover basketball. He also ran track at Hoover. This first time he ran track, he did long jump and triple jump. He was really great at, and I tried to push him toward that because I thought, okay, everybody ain't really doing long jump and triple jump, you know. So the deal was running back and forth. So I said to my husband, I said, I said he just need to go on and do the jumping and just don't do the games. Because, you know, you playing how many games in a day? Well, lo and behold, he's sprinting back and forth. We driving, jumping, and then basketball. In a game, I think the last game of the day, he stole the ball, cut the run up the court, and went down. Growth plate fracture.
Oh, wow.
Thank God that it was a type 1 and physical therapy, and that's all he had to have, because, you know, that's a serious
that's serious
injury. That's a serious injury. That's why I tell you anything, I pray and say, you know, if something come up, don't let it be severe.
Right.
And my husband, oh my goodness, it hurt him. It hurt him so bad. He said, I never do that again. I never make you go between. So I know what it's like, because when he went down, it was obvious. And even with that, he still thought he could get up.
Yeah.
And keep going. It was like, I'm letting my team down. I'm letting my team down.
Well, everybody talks about Kobe Bryant. Who doesn't remember that epic scene where Kobe has torn his Achilles and he stands up and shoots two free throws, makes them, refuses to come off assisted, hobbles back to the bench himself. You know, and that's what has been seared into these kids' minds. And you know, you play through the pain. You play through it. I remember playing ball and getting hit, knocked out, going over, getting some smelling salt, and going back into play.
This thumb here was broken on the backboard. I went up for a shot, and the guy pinned my hand to the backboard and broke my thumb. I made the shots on the free throws, but this thing never did heal right. Now it's crooked, you know. So
it's amazing.
It's just how we are. And as boys, we're taught don't cry.
That's right.
You know, don't cry. So you can't cry when you're injured. And that's what's wrong with us now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I would tell parents, you let them get a primary and maybe something secondary. In the end, we ended up, basketball became a year-round thing. Once you throw AAU and travel ball in there.
But that's the biggest reason they say for injuries now. Back in the day, kids played multiple sports. So in the fall, you would play football, or you know, one season was one sport, the other season was another sport. But now they're using the same muscles over and over and over again, and they're wearing down those muscles that weren't designed for that much repetition, especially at that age. And when you're talking about boys, you know, boys have heavier bones in their muscles and stuff, and so you know, these injuries are serious when these things happen. And you know, when I was doing this reading, I was looking at these girls. Man, I did not realize how deadly girls soccer was with concussions and stuff and ACL tears. You name it. I was listening to Dr. James Andrews. He has a book called Any Given Monday. Any Given Monday, a playoff of Any Given Sunday.
Right, Any Given Sunday.
And in his book, what he's talking about is any given Monday, he's going to see a kid in his office for a surgery. And all these orthopedic surgeons are talking about that the surgeries that they're performing now, you know, are on 11-year-olds, 8-year-olds. You know, you're talking about some kids that's not even hit puberty having ACL surgeries. And so in these kids, if you look at them, they're so just torn up because at that age, they're identifying themselves as being this athlete. And what people don't realize, and we're all guilty of it. I can't say I'm not either. But when you look at it, of all these kids that's playing these youth sports that's making about $15 billion for the youth industry, only 6% are going to go on to play college ball. And of that
Mm-hmm.
6%, only 2% of those are going to play D1 ball.
Yeah.
2%. And you're subjecting your kids, our kids, to all these injuries that at 30, 25 years old, they're going to have osteoarthritis.
Yeah. Yep.
You're going to greatly impact their physical abilities. And if they don't have someone talking to them to help them understand that they are not identified by this sport,
Sports.
you're going to not only damage them physically, you're going to damage them mentally.
Well,
For
you know,
sure.
let's look at it from that standpoint, guys. Identifying by what they do, the sport.
That's right.
We identify by what we do.
That's right.
So it's kind of hard for us, in my opinion, to differentiate how to tell them what not to identify as, but we can't even do it ourselves. You know,
So everybody, that's why everybody need to go to therapy and process all this stuff and deal with it. Because I told you, I every day more, I thank God for me being an emergency room nurse for
Hmm.
sure. Because it changed my whole perception on how I viewed some things. Because I was like, whoa, you can't keep doing this way because this is what's gonna happen. And let's talk about the track and field that just happened. Even with the World Games here,
Hmm.
and even what's her name, McLaughlin. I was looking at her, and I was looking at
Right.
Allison Felix, who's still a
Oh yeah.
phenomenal. I
At
mean, the
her age.
girl was
Yes.
smoking at her
Right.
age, and I'm so glad she went out on a blaze
Right.
of glory versus a blaze of
Yes.
girl. You should have quit 5 years
Exactly.
ago. You know what I'm saying? But I was looking at them, and everybody was like, "Wow, that is," and I was sitting there thinking, I have no desire to commit myself to that level of training.
Hmm.
You think about, I use Michael Phelps, good example. Had to eat what 10
So
10,000
many
calories a
cows.
day
Yeah.
to
how much?
keep up 10,000 calories a
Yeah.
day
Because he
to be
because
able
he
to
burnt that
swim
much
at that
because
level.
he swam so much, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
swimming burns your calories.
yeah,
But he's
So
also come out and talked about the mental health part
that's
of it.
right.
You look at Jalen,
Oh
quarterback
yeah.
for
Oh yeah.
I'm glad to see all of them being very vocal about the
Several come
mental
out with
toll.
depression. Osaka with the depression, the anxiety.
Yeah. And
And it's the pressure of everything is big now. Back in many, many moons ago, an athlete would have to have a regular job to be able to
right,
play that sport.
right, right.
And now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. You look at
Mhm.
what's
yeah.
going on with college football with this NIL money.
NIL.
And
Oh
these,
yes.
yeah, and so it is the epitome of capitalism. And unfortunately, our kids are the ones that are being eaten alive at a very young age.
And the
Um,
sad part about it, they're gonna get that money, and if they're not taught to manage it, where I was like, they should have put it in trust. To
that's
me,
right.
if they was gonna give them some to spend,
Right.
like an allowance, but it should have been put in a trust, and then they needed to have good financial planners because we know what would happen that
That's
you'll
right.
think you having somebody building your portfolio
Mhm.
and their portfolio bill,
Right,
but
right. Well, let's take this
yours is
question.
not.
Let's take this question.
Okay.
Renee, good evening. She says, "How do you navigate your children with aggressive coaches?" Well,
Well,
with a dad.
well, I'll
Not
say,
kidding.
well, that's a difficult one though. Just being honest, both my daughters they play at one of the top level programs, and you're talking about everybody wants their kids to go play D1 ball.
Hmm.
To play D1 ball, you're going to have to get on an elite squad. Um, and to be on an elite squad, you have to be an elite player. Like when they talk about overtraining, I was talking to my wife about this, and I'm like, man, wow, to think that Dr. Andrews recommends that your kids take a 3-month break each year, a 3-month break from sports.
Mm.
And when I hear that, I'm thinking to myself, man, that means my kids going to be behind when they come back because other people aren't going to stop. And that's the culture you're in, and so it's hard to say that you're going to pull your kid back when the only reason is just being real. I know plenty of girls that played softball with my daughter, and there were some girls that were really good. They did not get any major D1 scholarships. She's on the team with an aggressive coach. And guess what? When we were in a championship game, I'm sitting spitting distance, as they say, in the country, from every top SEC softball coach. Patty Gasso from Oklahoma is there. the UCLA head coaches there. You got you're talking about this is when my daughter was 14. These kids are 14, and you got 25 major D1 coaches sitting there watching the game.
And you know
And
what? Let's talk about this, Dr. Coleman. For instance, I know our son did travel and they had a great team. But the last 2 years, I've never hated much in my life, but this I hate it. I grew to hate AAU because from when he started in the seventh grade to about the time he graduated, it had been. It's like it almost was bypassing college. It was like the end up you getting ready for the NBA,
it
and to
is.
me, it took the joy out of it for the kids being able to learn good sportsmanship.
Yes.
Everything became kill or be killed, and
What?
that's how it was. And you would see scouts. You would
Hmm.
literally see not just college scouts at these AAUs.
Hmm.
You're seeing NBA coaches, and I'm like, what y'all doing here? These boys and the girls in the ninth grade, but it
Hmm.
got so competitive to keep my sanity. I started download books. I literally stopped watching the game. It was just so. And then
Well,
if a kid didn't do right, the parents would berate them.
that's right.
It was
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
Well,
Coaches
so
throwing chairs. It was just
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, and so it depends on the coach. Like I remember one incident where my daughter was on a team that was like a top team, my youngest one, and my wife and daughter were at a game, and this this guy got upset because she made a mistake. Now, my daughter at that time was like 9 years old, and he basically started yelling, and he threw a bat that didn't get near her, but was near enough to her. And so in his mind, he tried to say he didn't throw the bat towards her direction. The bat went towards her direction. I wasn't there. So my
Mm.
wife told me, of course, I called him the next day, and he and I had some nice words.
Mhm.
But but the problem is you're sitting at this situation, and as a parent, you want your kid on that top level team.
Mhm.
But some of these top level coaches have egos. They do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
And
we
let me
got
read this.
blessed. Oh, guys, I was just gonna say we got blessed, and that's where, as a parent, you're gonna have to be okay with moving your child off of a
On.
team. I
Mhm.
Yeah.
mean, you you're gonna have to find a coach that is a good coach, but not one that sees her as a pawn, but sees her as a person.
Right.
And that is important. That's what I would say as a parent. You
Parent.
really have to do that.
Mhm.
Well, look, we
Mhm.
got a comment from one of our mental health professional. She says she has a client now with an eating disorder
Hmm.
because of the mental abuse from her gymnastic coach. Now, y'all know gymnastics. It's all
That's
about
right.
that size.
That's
You got to
right.
be if they gain a blip of an ounce, they are dogging them. And I told you all about how my son was treated his last 2 years at Hoover.
Hmm.
And I wanted him to go, but he was so resistant to it. So I just had to look. At that point, since he didn't want counsel, I had to tell Jesus, look, I need you to protect my son's sanity with this.
Mhm.
But later on, he did go on his own, which is great because he still needed to process
Hmm.
that. Now,
Mhm.
Dad stepped to the coach because I think there was Renee asked about aggressive.
Hmm.
It's okay when it's obvious, but when you have a micro
That's right.
aggression,
Mhm.
you can't put your pulse on that. And that's
Mm-mm.
what this coach was. It was that slow undercurrent. But now, y'all didn't know my husband. He's 6'4", big guy. He stepped to him and say, let me talk. It got better
Hmm.
because he knew then we were with it. And even with that, we never told our child they could quit something. But that last year we said, you don't have to play anymore. You can
Hmm.
stop playing. And he said this, it goes back. He said, Mom, he said, I like my teammates. And I'm not gonna let him make me quit. He said, so when I get in the game, I'm gonna do what I can do to help my team win. And he did okay and got through it, but it also taught him a valuable lesson that sometimes even when you're talented, if somebody decides not to like you,
Hmm.
they
Just
just don't
like
like you.
right.
Mhm.
But
Right.
you got to be careful. Like when you're talking about kids developing eating disorders or anxiety or depression because of a sport, as a parent, you have to ask yourself, is this healthy for my child long
Yes.
term?
Mm-hmm.
And if it was my kid, and my kid is developing an eating disorder because of gymnastics, we're going to have some serious counseling to evaluate that question. Um, and I get some parents, they're blind to it too. They get sucked into it. That parent sits on that sideline, and I've seen parents who punish their kids because their kids don't perform.
Yes.
I'm going to take your phone if you don't. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, are you serious? Or they're yelling at them in the parking lot because they're embarrassed by them, and I,
Dr. Coleman, I'm laughing because when you said that this was the only thing we told our kids, like camera play basketball, I said, look, if we're gonna be coming out here paying our money, run up and down this road, you're gonna be sprinting up and down that court when you are. You ain't gonna be doing no trots. You're gonna be hustling. And
now
we used
that's
to
different. Now
yeah,
that's
we like,
different.
oh, you're gonna be hustling now. I don't care. Listen, we ain't finna spend our money.
That's funny.
You
I
easing
played
up.
I played on a lot of teams, elementary, high, and some college stuff. But I've never had anyone who really dogged me.
Mm-hmm.
I was a very good ball player.
Right.
But I'm also a very vocal person.
No.
Whether or not I was a child or an adult, I would get in your stuff. You know what I mean? It was so bad one time, Doc. I went to a private school, and the teachers would call me by my first name. Well, I turned around and called them by their first name.
Oh boy.
So I remember this. I was in the 5th grade, and I was in private school. So they would call my parents, who would go to church with them, choir practice with them, and said, Rico is up here calling us by our first name. That's my middle name is Ricardo.
Right.
And so they asked me about it. I said, yeah, they call me by my name. They say, good morning, Rico. I said, good morning, Mildred. And they said, why do you do that? I said, well, they call me by my first name. Why can't my kid call me by their first name? And I'm kidding you not. There's a lady right now. She's probably 85 years old. When she sees me, you know what she says? Hello, Mr. Rico.
La Cherie, this your boo.
So I've never had anybody to just hound me about anything. They'll give me some correction on some things I need to get done. But if you come at me, you better be prepared.
Well, but then that's blessing that you had that personality. But a lot of these kids don't, and they're at the mercy of these coaches, and and it's difficult, especially when you get. And I was sitting here as you were talking. I remember there was this one coach. He had a habit of like yelling, as they say in the country, dog cussing players out. Now the team was a top team, like a really good team, and I remember when my daughter, he wanted her on his team, and I remember we went on the team, and I'm like, all right, first time this joker raised his voice at my daughter, we gonna have it. But he never did it though, and that's the crazy thing. He never did, but he knew my personality. But the problem is, some of these people, as parents, when you put your child on that team, you have to be an active parent. You can't just sit back and watch stuff and say, well, it's gonna get better. Well, this is my only way. No, you got to be active. And not only that, you need to pay attention to your child, because if your child starts showing signs of fatigue, I remember when our older one, who's at Penn State now, when she kept saying, well, I think I'm done. I said, okay, that's fine. If you want to be done, that's fine. And the kids need to know that they don't have to keep playing if they don't feel like playing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so many of these kids feel like they have to, that's their only identity. No, it's not. That's not your only identity. You were who you were before you started playing sports.
Right.
And I think what has to happen with parents, if you got kids that play, sports, you really need to pay attention to their emotional states. One of the things I did with my older one, she was a perfectionist really bad. And so I talked to her about yoga. So next thing I know, we got a doggone yoga mat coming from Amazon. But if you look at athletes, one of the things that Kobe and Michael Jordan them did, they did meditation, because these athletes need to find a way to be in tune with their emotions, with their thoughts. And, they don't need to be pushed so much to the point that they're almost like a robot. And that's the concern. And I think Carl Lewis, he has a podcast. It's called the Perfect Method. And I was listening to him, and he was talking about his concerns about the exact thing that, there's a level of professionalism and, overuse that he's seeing in these young kids that is killing them. And it's not only them, it's their parents. And their parents are just as bad. Their parents are living their second life through their kids playing these sports.
Yep.
And therein lies a huge problem, because unconsciously these kids are wanting to please their parents. And so they are fully embracing this role, and they're pushing themselves to exhaustion.
Dr. Coleman, let's dig a little deeper in that, because I want to look at this from the perspective of a child that's in poverty and is athletic and, gifted.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what probably even their mental stress is with the burden of you're going to be our ticket out.
Yeah. And there is a huge problem right there, because you see it with some of these professional athletes over and over again. They admit that basically, the first thing they do when they get their check is they go spend all their money on their mom, their dad, their family. Well, not usually with their dads, but you know what I mean. They spend it up on their family, because you have a weight on you. I've seen a couple of athletes who, in my outpatient clinic, who had a knee injury, and he couldn't play any more ball, and he was devastated because he felt like he let his family down.
Mm.
Now,
and that's a burden to know that.
Yeah. And so, and helping him to navigate through understanding that, no, you're a kid. You're not the provider of your family. You are a kid.
Right.
And as a kid, you have to figure out your path. You did not come into this world to take care of your mom, your cousins, your sisters. No, they brought you into this world. And trying to help them to understand that is very difficult, because, they get a lot of pressure from home that basically lets them know that, hey, we riding on you.
Yeah.
Well, look, let me ask you that, because I know for us and all our kids, coaches understood this, because we big on family. At that time, my grandmother was alive. She lived to be 99, so she, probably in her 80s with my kids. And so the coaches knew up front. I'm like, I don't care what we don't care what y'all going on. But these are things that when we go do these with our family, our kids won't be there. And we had one coach who was like, well, we really need Cam. And me, the twisted nurse. I'm like, if Cam dropped dead, you replace with somebody. I mean, so you don't need my son. You want to use my son. You don't need him.
Now, that is wise, sage advice, Val. I fully agree with you, but I will tell you, I'm just going to be real. I will tell you, I've been on these teams with some really good athletes. I know a really good athlete that was on the team, and their parents were really involved in church. And that became a problem for one of these top organizations, because a lot of the championship games were on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of your key players gonna miss the championship game because they at church?
Well, that happens a lot with the Seventh-day Adventists.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Magic Johnson had that problem.
Mm-hmm.
He was at Michigan, and being Seventh-day Adventist growing up, he really wasn't supposed to be playing on Friday night, which is Sabbath, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But what did he do? He chose to play. He went on the NBA and that sort of thing. But his parents are still practicing Adventists.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But it puts those athletes in a bad spot, because that team, quote unquote, is dependent on you if you're that star player.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what's going to happen, especially it's a $15 billion industry, if you're not there, they're going to replace you, and they will. Yeah. And the thing is, I love what you said, Valerie, because you have to decide what's your values. And you and your husband had great values to make those calls, but I can tell you, there's a lot of people who aren't making that call.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the key things, going back to what you said, parents need to let kids live their lives, and as you said, not live this twisted thing that you have created in your mind for your child. You got parents. My kid gonna play golf. I mean, let's just talk about this. Even though it was a great movie, King Richard.
That's right.
That was emotional abuse. Those Venus and Serena were not okay. They were not okay, because literally he controlled. They didn't have a choice.
No,
they did not have a choice. My daughter played tennis through 12th grade at Hoover, and had some offers for scholarships. And she was like, and we didn't make play. She's like, you know what? I'm just done. Now that was why she's dislocated her shoulder
Mm.
before. Now we found out after that. Well, it was one of those games during school we didn't go to.
Mm-hmm.
They popped it back in and she kept going. Now I can tell you, you as my mother, as her mother, I would have pulled her out because I've done it before when she's playing tennis. And I look out there, I was like,
Now,
she was
like I
playing
said,
something. I was like,
Val,
something's off.
you special, and I agree
Yeah.
fully with.
And I went down to that fence.
That's
No.
funny.
I mean,
That,
you got to you
that,
gotta fight for your kids, and you
yeah,
gotta
I agree.
protect them,
yeah.
especially now. But and now these NIL countries, Lord Jesus, that's gonna be the
But
next thing they
but
pushing
but the
for.
but the thing
That-
is though, Val, you were securing you. We're talking about kids. A lot of times you talk about from poverty.
Yeah,
This is their only ticket for them in their minds. And the
Mhm.
sad part is, most of them ain't even gonna make it.
Right.
yeah,
You
true.
know, we put all our eggs on going into they're gonna go to NFL, they're gonna go to NBA. But the reality, when I went to Rutledge, I had middle schoolers telling me they're going, what do you want to do? I want to go to the NBA. I
Yeah.
want to
Play
go to the
football.
NFL.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing right now? Well, I'm just, I ain't doing nothing yet. I said, well, man, what's your plan B? Because these kids, like I told you, 6% of people who play all these youth sports, only 6% are gonna go play college ball. And of that, only 2% gonna do D1 ball. Only
Mm,
2%. Yet every school you probably walk into in the inner city, every one of those kids are believing they go into the NFL or they go into the NBA. And here's the kicker that people don't realize: when you get to elite levels now, it costs money. You you know how many, like when my daughter played with this team out of Tennessee Mojo that I was telling you about, had all those coaches there. They went to Oklahoma, they went to Colorado,
mm-hmm.
they went to California. We didn't play in Alabama. You're on planes. You're flying places. They got sponsored. They're being sponsored by Demarine. So she gets a $400 bat, $400 glove, her uniform, but ain't nobody paying for her to fly all over the place.
And ain't
And
nobody
so
paying for your meals in your hotel room when you show up.
exactly. And
Look,
so
I
so you
tracked the hours one year, and then after that, I said, I don't want to know for real, for real. I'll look at it later.
but part of the problem on that though is the kids who you're talking about who are poor. Some of
Hmm.
these coaches are sponsoring them, so they
Mhm.
do feel like they own them.
Oh,
And
Mhm.
and
so as
like
a
us as
parent,
parents, we
but
sponsored
but
a couple of
but
kids for
yeah, but
feeding them and
but
stuff.
you can make that call to these parents. What one of the people who was talking about an aggressive coach, if your kid is one of those kids and you don't have money and
Yeah,
you're on one of these teams and your kid is being seen in front of all these coaches and this guy's acting like a royal butt, you're in a bad position. And that's where,
yeah,
like you said, you got to make a decision. Only 6% of people are going to go to college. Only 2% of them going to D1. Is it really worth it?
Mhm.
There are some values that you're going to have to decide whether or not are more important or not for you and your child. And that's a hard decision for some people because all they see is their way of escape. But there are so much better ways of escape when it comes to education. You can
yeah.
put
True.
not even a tenth of the energy that you're putting in to look for a pipe dream and make sure they get a good education so they can go get a good job. You
Mhm.
know, we dominate as a culture. I think 75% NBA is black, right? Yet
Hmm.
the average income blacks make 47,000. Now,
Wow.
how many Indian Americans you see in the NBA?
Mhm.
How
I ain't
many
seen one of them
Asian
yet.
Americans? How many
Very
Nigerians?
few.
Yeah. So, but you know who number one income earners? The Indian Americans, 138,000.
Mm.
Taiwanese and Filipino, 2 and 4, and number five are Nigerians. Yet they're not on TV. We all the way down as an average making 47,000, and these individuals are making almost 100 between 138 to 100,000 on average. And the average income in this country is 64. So they're living
Yeah.
very well.
Mhm.
But we put all our eggs
In
on
that
this
bad.
dream of NBA, NFL, and
Mhm.
we don't push education. I mean, I saw a girl the other day, and she's struggling in nursing school. But when she went to one of these schools that I'm not going to name, she had a 3.9 GPA. And she couldn't
Hmm.
understand why she was struggling. I said to her, I said, you know what number your school is as far as education in this state? I said, in this state is number 45 in the whole United States as far as education. I said, your school is in the bottom 10% of schools in this state. I said, a 3.9 at that school ain't a 3.9 nowhere else.
Yeah.
I said, so what we have to understand is you got to work a little extra because you had no control over your school and you did everything you could there, but you're not prepared. So you're going to have to work a little extra. You're going to have to put a little bit more time in to try to make up that ground. And that's the thing that we don't realize is that, wanting our kids to sell their soul to make this pipe dream of being in the NBA, NFL,
Mm-hmm.
it comes with at a huge cost, mentally and physically. You got kids. I mean, I saw the documentary on Earl Campbell, and man, I remember Earl Campbell was a beast.
Yes, he
And
was.
here he is, Earl Campbell sitting here. So, I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but he can't even move without somebody helping him up.
Wow.
And then you see all these athletes now with CTE, like,
Early.
early.
Early, early, early,
Early,
early.
Demarius to get the wide receiver who went to the NFL to the Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos with Peyton Manning, he has CTE and he takes his life. You got Junior Seau, Hall of Famer, took his life. All these
Yeah.
guys, that we honor, we think are so great. They had CTE, and people say, well, that's football. No, soccer, female soccer, is up there high. I think it's number 2 actually with concussions and stuff.
Yeah.
So and these kids are catching concussions as early as 10, 11, and 12. They're having knee surgeries, they're having shoulder surgeries. You got Tommy John syndrome, have surgeries. And these physical debilitations are horrendous. And then the issues of anxiety. They got a condition called yips, where you have such anxiety you can't even throw a ball as a pitcher or a catcher.
Wow. You know
You
what,
know,
Dr. Coleman, you talked about Nigeria, and when I thought of that, a Nigerian doctor is the
that's
first
right.
person to identify
That's right. CTE.
CTE.
That's
But
right.
because he was black, he had to get it to the forefront of the medical societies through I don't know if he's a white physician from another country or American
Well, he
to
had to
even get
go
them to
away
list it.
around the way because the NFL was blocking him. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
No, NFL didn't want that coming out. Period. They
Yeah.
wouldn't care
But
who it
once he
was.
got it to his white colleague, it was
Oh,
accepted. So
they
he
still tried to
identified.
fight it. No, they still tried to
Yeah.
fight him because you know how much money the NFL makes.
Oh, yeah.
They did not
Listen.
want that coming out.
Listen, I got a family. I got a family member right now. My sister in law, which is my sister in law, her brother played in the Fakes, and just in the past few years,
Mhm.
the NFL has had to provide for him. He has MS,
Yeah.
which the doctor can only
From
contribute to
yep
is from that.
from that brains. Yep.
Yeah,
And
and
people don't realize
he was a
Parkinson's
slim guy.
disease. Yeah,
Yeah,
you look at Muhammad Ali. He was punch drunk. Parkinson's disease. He had those symptoms before the last fight he had with what was the guy's name? Larry Holmes. He already was having symptoms. There was no reason for him to be fighting Larry Holmes. None. I mean, he was basically a sitting target. Yet the problem was he did not know how to turn that switch off. And
yeah.
you see these athletes who have a hard time retiring because that becomes their
That's their
identity.
life. You know
Yeah.
what? I think we need who are the two? Both of them are. Well, one of them is a mathematician, and I think it's Myron Rose. He was a Rhodes
Oh no,
scholar.
he's a neurosurgeon.
Yeah, no, he's
Neurosurgeon.
a neurosurgeon, but he
Yeah.
went in. He got him a little NFL money. Was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a
And he
neurosurgeon,
left.
and then
He left.
and then the one that's the mathematician. He played a few years with
Right. And
Denver Broncos or
he
whatever. He
got
was
on
like,
out too.
yeah, but he said I got to get out because I got to protect my mind
That's right.
with it. So
And so a number of
hopefully
them
we'll
leaving
see
after
more and
two
more
or
of
three
that.
years. Right. They leaving after 3 years. They are.
Yeah,
But
especially
but
with the contracts they get. You
yeah,
you like,
but the
Yeah.
problem is our kids are the ones that's looking at that, and that's who they're idolizing. They idolize the Kobe Bryants who hobble off with a torn Achilles. They idolize the guys like Ronnie Lott, who I thought Ronnie Lott was a beast, and he used to come in head first, laying out
Yep.
people.
Yep.
Merle Hodges, he played with the Steelers. He couldn't even get sentences out as a broadcaster until they finally had to take him off early. You know,
mm,
all these greats who played ball and they get out and they're still young and they're messed up,
very
and
young.
and that's who our kids are idolizing.
Yeah.
And as parents, unfortunately, we get caught up in it too. We want our kid to be that next superstar. And at
I'll
what
give you
cost?
one. Did you see this on the news? And they were celebrating, which it was a good gesture what the young man did. Uh, two baseball teams playing for the championship. The pitcher threw a wild pitch and it hit the young man right here, knocked him out.
Mm,
This just happened. I watched this today or yesterday. He was out for a minute and some seconds. He woke up. I was like, they really let that happen. And then they said, and he got up and they helped him get to first base. I was like, where the EMTs at? That baby
yeah,
got a concussion. But
yeah.
he stayed in the game and they applauded
How
him
how old
because
was he?
he was probably no more than 13,
Oh
14.
Well,
wow.
And
You know that.
yeah, y'all gotta look that up. I'm gonna
Well,
see if I can find it.
here's the sad thing. What people don't realize, there's a condition called second impact syndrome, and people need to look
Ooh.
that up. And second impact syndrome is, when young adults have concussions. See, when we get
Mm-hmm.
older, our bones start fusing. So, we don't. That doesn't happen until you're about in your 20s before it stop growing fully for boys, right? So, when you're a teenager, your neck is still real move. It can easily be moved, and when these kids have concussions and they don't fully heal, if they have a second impact, it's called second impact syndrome.
Mm.
Because they haven't fully recovered from the first one, it actually increases their risk for mortality by 50%.
Wow. They can
Second
die. Good
impact syndrome.
Lord.
And the hit doesn't even have to be hard because of the fact that, and people don't realize, your brain is the consistency of butter. All you got to do, if you want to know what how your brain is, make melt butter just a little bit to where it's soft, like soft butter. That's the consistency of your brain. And imagine that, slam it up against the wall.
mm,
That's what happens with concussions.
mm.
I mean, you know what though? It's amazing that we didn't consider this much more sooner with adults. Because you look at shaken baby syndrome.
Hmm. Same concept. That's basically it.
Yeah, it's the same concept because that's always been around. But and I tell anybody out there, protect your children. I
Hmm.
don't care. I did not. If my kids got hurt, did not play.
That's right.
They
And
and I
that's
would
what
tell
they need
people
to know.
this: you ain't gonna be at my house helping to change no diapers or do nothing if they get
But
become a
you tell the truth.
quadriplegic or something.
But Val, you
Y'all
tell the
ain't gonna even
truth.
give me one dime. So
That's right.
you've got to protect your
Children. I
children and
fully agree.
yourself at all costs. If it's time for you to sit down, baby, you can't be the fastest sprint of all your life. You
Hmm.
can't do it. I'm glad Hussein said, look, I was it, I'm out.
That's right. But and the thing is, like you said, we talking about these kids. That I think what you're saying, parents
Look,
need to protect their kids. I fully agree with that.
you see
Parents
my
need to
friend.
protect.
Yeah, but now he always freak us out when he come on here. Listen,
Well, I got to
even
tell
though
you the
I
truth
do,
though, because people don't realize how dangerous things are. Like I said, all you got to do is Google it. Second impact syndrome. Those that sit up here, oh, that can't be.
I dropped the link in the chat. I dropped it in the chat.
But they need to take these things serious because it's not a joke. You don't want your kids having osteoarthritis at 22 years old. Can't even walk good. Like,
Woo.
because they've had so many knee surgeries or they've had so many ankle injuries.
And if
and,
you
and it,
think about it, if you look at Magic got that I'm hobbled up shuffle.
that's
I mean,
right.
he really does.
So what? And if your kids do play sports, though, you really need to be checking on their mental health.
Hmm.
And you got to do that, and you got to make sure they get good sleep. If they do have an injury, the things you need to think about is there's a mnemonic. Me and mnemonics is called RICE. That's rest, ice,
Mm-hmm.
compression, and elevation. If for any kind of injuries, you got to take care of the injuries. You got to make sure they get good sleep. Depending on the ages of the kids, if they're 6 to 13, they need to be getting 9 to 11 hours of sleep. If they're 14 to 17, 8 to 10. And if they're 18 to 25, 7 to 9. And the other thing is they really need to eat healthy. I get on my daughter right now about it. All this fast food, processed food, and that sugar, that's
Yeah.
inflammation. And you're already putting strain on your joints and your muscles. You don't need to be adding inflammation. You need to really cut out fast food. We used to pack, my wife used to make these Tupperware dishes with carrots and celery and,
Hmm.
and grapes and stuff like that. And we would make tuna fish, something that we would take that was healthier than going to get fast food all the time. You got to really, and drinking water, drink water. If you get those sports drinks, Try not to put all that sugar in it. And the thing that people need to realize, hydration, your kids are underhydrated if they haven't been drinking a lot of water before the games. Most people think, oh, let me just buy some drinks and I'll take it. No, no, no. You should have been hydrated the day before. These kids are they are not properly hydrated before they come to a game. And I get on my daughter about this. I say, look, you ain't drinking enough water the day before. And stretching. Most kids don't stretch. They
Right.
should be stretching every night. If you're an elite athlete, you need to be stretching every night. Stretching. Taking my kids, I got them to do it. What I do is go buy a bag of ice and we put it in the tub and let them get in the tub and get under that ice water. And it's mostly ice, so that their body can recover. If they're going to play these sports, you got to do stuff to take care of their mind and their body.
That's right.
I would really get my kids into doing stuff like meditation or yoga and letting your kids have an open door to say, hey, mom, dad, I'm done.
But
Don't
look, Dr.
force them.
Coleman, it sounds like what you're saying, because basically what you're saying, we need to revamp. We would have to revamp the whole education system to incorporate those things early on with even meditation. And I know there
Oh,
are
it
some
does.
schools that are doing that
Hmm.
because I mean, I just feel like probably, but I can only speak to America. I just feel like we got a runaway train on
We
our
do.
track
We
of
do.
business, do
Yep.
more. And even though you get up there and make the money, someone shared Dave's like, well, if you get the money, everything else fine. I said, no, it's not. I
That's
said, because your mind is gonna be messed up. I said, believe it or not, even though our folk, my parents or who in the past didn't have a lot of money, they had more true happiness and joy because they weren't trying to get.
hmm
You could laugh, you could have fun. If people showed up, I remember my mom and them would get together. They get their ice cream machine out.
hmm
Somebody come over there, whoop out some hot dogs, and y'all, they were better than these hot dogs y'all eat now. They have all this stuff um, in them, and we would be running in the yard, having a
Yeah.
good time, as happy.
that's
We
right.
have
Kissing
become more
lightning bugs.
mentally, yeah, we have become mentally oppressed because we
That's
got
right.
into this competition.
That's
We're
right.
on a hamster wheel of competition.
We
I tell
are.
people all the time, y'all can strip the nurse from behind my name. I was important without all that. I
Well,
don't know
Val,
how, hey, I don't know how my
you,
parents managed to make me
hey,
feel that way. But thank you,
you,
Jesus.
you got the right attitude, and
Thank you,
honestly,
Jesus.
what I'm saying to these parents, I agree with you. They need to step up and be protectors of their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And if they let these kids play, they need to make sure they're paying attention to not only their physical health but their mental health. And they need to have an open door to really talk to their kids to make sure their kids aren't just being pushed to exhaustion. And that's
Because your
mentally
kids
and
should not be
physically.
getting up at 4 to go to practice for nothing.
Well, they do.
Band
I hear
practice.
what you're saying,
But
but if
when we
you're
were
on,
in high school, they would go get up at early and go to band practice.
yeah, and if you're on these elite teams, I'm just telling you, these elite teams, Val, it's a
Oh,
whole
I
nother
know.
beast.
AAU, they was flying boys in to
That's
play
right.
on teams. I'm like, this is like mafia now.
It
I'm I'm
is.
I'm expecting a shootout in the gym in a minute. I mean, really, they were literally flying these boys cross country to
That's what you
play
do.
on teams from
That's right.
California to Alabama and vice versa to build really
Yep.
like a super team, a super AAU team.
That's
Is
that's
what
what
they were
that's what
doing.
they are.
Well, look, so well, let me see what she said. And not finishing at 10. Oh, Renee was talking about at night and not finishing at 10 p.m. at night before a school day in the third grade.
Yeah. I mean, that's too much.
Yeah,
That's really
it
Oh,
too
is.
much.
well, look, Dr. Coleman, as always, you just look, as the old folks say, you don't told our head a mess. I mean,
Oh my
Lord
head.
Jesus. That's something my grandmama used to say.
Never heard that before. I use that one. So my
You know,
head
I'm from the real country.
I
You
got you.
from you
yeah.
from a pseudo country. So look, Dr. Coleman, I'm gonna let you share with the people your news.
Uh-oh. Look, we're not we gonna process that one first, Val. How about that?
Okay, he gonna process it, y'all. Y'all
Uh-oh.
pray. That's all I got to say.
Am I aware of this news?
Yeah,
I think
Val.
you are.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
But
Okay.
we
yeah.
we
We
gonna we gonna
praying.
we gonna think about that first.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I told him
We'll
he a
talk about that the
celebrity.
next time. How about that?
Right. I hear you.
The next time,
Yeah.
we gonna work something out though.
There you go.
Yeah.
We
Well,
gonna work
ladies and
something out.
gentlemen, We have enjoyed ourselves. The time has come now. It's 7:55, and we are winding down. Dr. Coleman, we always enjoy you, man. You are a wealth of knowledge. I mean, a wealth of knowledge. But we have had a good time. Thank you for sharing all that which you've given us tonight. For those who've chimed in and chatted with us, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for sticking with us and joining us as always. And of course, next week we will have the Dr. Angelicia. I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, and she's from Birmingham. And
Good.
she was the one when all the storms came through and we had to cancel the show
Okay, yeah,
what,
yeah,
2
yeah,
minutes.
yeah, yeah.
It was that night.
Okay, Angelicia?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. All right, good.
Yeah.
So we will have her next week. Pardon?
I said I have to listen in myself.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. And please join us if you like.
Yeah.
You got the link.
Yeah, and we actually were going to have a music person, but after we had to cancel her, we decided to just reschedule her there. We're trying to get our balance of alternating y'all with this type of information and then our musical people. Carter is really, because you know, when Dr. Coleman come in and all this, we got to come back the next weekend. Get our mind right with it. But it's a necessary thing because you all, if we don't talk about it, then you won't have awareness. You can be in tune for microaggression. You can be attuned to a coach that's taking it too far, and pay attention to your children. Now, let me say this, you all. If you allowing your child to isolate in their room all the time, you probably ain't gonna even pick up on when there something's going on. You know, I would say to my husband, like, something going on with Belisa Cam. He'd be like, well, no, it ain't, because he didn't pay attention to that type of stuff. But I'm like, no, they're not doing this. So you got to pay attention to those subtle changes in your kid. So, Balton ready to eat. I'm sure Dr. Coleman is too. Oh, no, you don't eat past 7, is it?
No.
Okay.
I'm done.
He's done.
Well,
I'm going to be eating behind after 7 tonight.
Well, yeah, y'all have a wonderful night. Talk to y'all soon.
And we'll see you all next week. Be safe because we got COVID, monkeypox, and some down there in the Gulf Coast. Y'all pray. Y'all just stay safe. There's a lot going on.
Monkeypox, chickenpox, measles, everything.
It's a lot going on.
All right, y'all. We got to get out of here.
Y'all take care.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.